Well, hello, Ellie. We are here with Dr. Ellie Campbell, and she is practicing functional medicine for a long, long time now. So, Dr. Campbell, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Kristen. It's so good to be here. So I'm a family physician by training. I've been practicing family medicine for over 30 years. I've been doing functional medicine for a little over 15 years in a solo concierge style cash only membership based practice in suburban Atlanta. So I was kind of an early adopter of this. People thought I was kind of a weirdo. And now, we're getting more and more traction, and people are now Googling us and finding us when they Google functional medicine. And so we have this really tiny, intimate, integrative practice in suburban Atlanta. I have a staff of 6 full-time and 2 part-time. And we have a really, really cozy place, and I'm in the middle of building a brand new building. It's under construction, and hopefully by June we'll be occupying our own standalone little house that's been converted to an office a quarter mile from the hospital. So everybody that drives past our sign is going to say functional medicine on the way to get to the hospital. It's going to be beautiful.
That's exciting. Good for you. I'm so impressed. Well, I know that's a dream of a lot of providers. So you are also a Meetup host.
I have been a Meetup host since 2010, since before there was a functional forum. I was hosting a Meetup.
Yeah, how did that happen? So tell me, why did you even want to do that?
Yeah, so as I started doing integrative medicine, lots of weirdos pop into your office, right? People that, have energy medicine, and people who see acupuncturists and colon hydrotherapists and all these things I had never heard of in my conventional medicine training. And so I started to keep a Rolodex of the same names that kept coming up over and over again. Chiropractors that people like to see, acupuncturists that people like to see, traditional Chinese medicine herbalists that people like to see, whatever was interesting. And then once in a while, a medical doctor would show up. OB-gynecologist who did bioidentical hormones, or a gastroenterologist who believed in, oh my gosh, probiotics, right? And so I started keeping this little Rolodex so that I would have a referral source for people. Well, one day it occurred to me that I was referring patients once in a while back and forth, but I didn't know these people. I didn't know the depth of their knowledge. I didn't know their personalities. When you practice hospital medicine, you kind of get, you have your choice. There's 6 ears, nose, and throat doctors on staff at the hospital. How do you pick one? Well, you kind of have to know their personalities and what are their interests. And this one plays in a rock band, and this one works on antique cars, and this one, is a concert pianist in their spare time. So you can kind of match the personality of the practitioner with the patient when you need a referral. Well, I wasn't able to do that for these integrative doctors or practitioners because I didn't know them. So I said, well, I think I need to host a meeting for them, but I had 0 budget. So I had to figure out how to get people together, because usually you bring food, right? I didn't want to pay for food for strangers. So I decided instead to hold lectures and make it educational. So if I could at least get somebody to come speak to our group and provide value for the hour that they were going to be there, then we would have an opportunity to both meet each other, have a little networking time, and then go away with a topic of interest. So for the first 2 years, I think, that I did my Meetup groups, they were on a 0 budget in borrowed space with expert speakers who were willing to do it free. And I could only coordinate that about quarterly. So it was a challenge. I didn't have a lot of interest, and I had the hardest time was coming up with content. What was going to make the Meetup interesting to me? So around that same time, I was trying to expand my practice, and I wanted to offer services that were not in my wheelhouse, but patients were utilizing. So I wanted to get thermal breast imaging, breast thermography. I wanted to include ionic foot baths, and I wanted to include massage therapy. So I started hiring all these people and trying to coordinate all these specialties, and I was having a hard time. Well, one of my nutraceutical reps, James Maskell, had switched careers, and he was no longer being a sales rep for this company. He was really good at it and had great products, but he was starting a consulting business to help holistic doctors become more business savvy. And so through HPD, Holistic Practice Development, James came to me, and he and his partner, who is a chiropractor, Andrew Collier, really helped me kind of one up my practice, helped me streamline it. And Andrew was a practice efficiency expert. So he came to my space and he's like, you need a bookshelf there. And why is this pen in this drawer instead of this drawer? And you have too many gathering points for information. We need to streamline your practice. So they really helped me in that. And about maybe a year or so after that, James was starting the Functional Forum. And he had heard about my Meetup group, and he's thinking, maybe I need to take that idea of a physical Meetup group and take it virtual, because that's the future, right? The future is to use the internet. The future is to make things virtual. So he called me one day and he said, Ellie, I have an idea. What if I could put the meat in your Meetup group? What if I could give you content every month so that you wouldn't have to spend your time, energy, and effort? I could provide that for you. And it's like, whoa, that's brilliant. Like, I love that idea. So about that same time, or shortly thereafter, the Amen Clinic opened in Atlanta. And I was lecturing at A4M, and I went to go hear Dr. Amen speak, and we went out to dinner afterwards. And he told me all about their new Atlanta clinic. So I went down there, I took my kids there. We all got our brain scanned. We wanted to see what we were like. So got to be patients. I got to meet their physician liaison, Tom Bowen. And Tom said, we have an education room. It's specifically for the purposes of providing education to our community. This is part of Dr. Amen's business model, is he wants to educate. And he said, we have space for you to have a meetup anytime you want. So that was like, check, I've got content, check, I've got a free space. Now I've got everything that I need to do the meetup group still on a zero budget. So that's kind of how it started. And since 2010, we were meeting quarterly, and now since about 2013, every month, unless something comes up. Like right now, we're trying to do, for the first time next month, virtual meetings, right? Everybody's on lockdown, so we're going to do a Zoom meeting for our first time and see what sort of attendance that gets. People like the meetup because we like hugging each other. We like being close to each other. We like learning our personalities, and we often do potluck. And so it's always interesting to see what innovative, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free treats and homemade food people can bring to share for our potluck.
So that's amazing. First of all, just let me acknowledge you for that. Because you like really didn't let anything stop you. So yeah, way to go. But what value, because I've been running one so long, I'm curious, a couple of things. How did you get people to come? How do you get people to come? I think that's a big question, is like, where do I start? And then the other question is, what do the people that attend tell you and say once they've come, or what are they saying that they want more of? So start there.
Right. So I think, one of the things that I have always said is that as providers, we self-neglect. We don't take care of ourselves very well. And so I challenge everybody in the audience to find a practitioner that you would want to see as a patient. So we're selfish in one way. I assemble these groups of experts in their field to try to show off their own expertise to the group, so that the other practitioners can find out who is the best of the best in our community, so that we can refer our patients to that, because we want only the best for our patients. Furthermore, you might have 7 chiropractors in the room, all of whom have a different specialty. And so a chiropractor doesn't equal a chiropractor, and you want to find out who does upper cervical and who does functional neurology and who does, soft tissue release, because they all have different approaches to wellness and different personalities, and your patient might need that service from that one and that one, not just one of them. But furthermore, I challenge the practitioners to find somebody here that can take care of you and make an appointment, because often we don't want to be seen in our own community getting health care. But because of the location in central Atlanta, I get people from an hour south of the airport, an hour north of the meeting place, that come to our meeting because they find value in it and they find value in the topics. And so now you might find a family physician an hour south of you that you feel comfortable going to go see for some problem that you didn't want anybody in your own office or in your own neighborhood to know about.
Right.
So that's something valuable. I think I have seen probably 6 different practitioners from our Meetup group as a patient. I unfortunately was rear-ended 3 years ago. I was rear-ended by a semi-truck, and he totaled my car and left me with a TBI and 3 herniated discs in my neck. And so I needed a bunch of care. I'd never needed providers before that. And suddenly I needed a chiropractor, a massage therapist, an herbalist, an acupuncturist, hyperbaric oxygen, IV therapy, right? I needed all these things for 5 months. I couldn't see new patients. I was really rattled. So, that's what the organization provided to me, right? It gave me a place to get care. So that was a blessing. What do the users tell me? They tell me that it is a safe place to come share their thoughts, feelings, frustrations about being a practitioner. 10 years ago, we were really considered kind of wacky people, and there was a lot more commiserating for people that just felt like outsiders. Like the only time I ever felt sane for what I was doing was when I came into my Meetup group. Now it's a lot more about information exchange. There's a lot less sadness and isolation, I think, among integrative practitioners, and a lot more opportunity to share. So that's what people like. They like to learn new stuff, and they always like that we're doing cutting edge things. Our groups, how do we get people? We send out an constant contact invitation every month. We have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, and we post that on the Facebook group every month. And so between those and word of mouth, between those 3 ways, word of mouth, Facebook, and direct email, that's how we attract our attendees. Now, that said, we have, I think, 1,500 names on our email list, and we get maybe 12 to 40 people at a meeting. So that's, to me, not a very good return, and the same, probably 8 people are at every meeting. And then a few others trickle in here and there, come and go, depending on their time of year and availability. What time to do your Meetup group is a challenge. I sent out a survey once to try to see, would you want morning, afternoon, or evening? And what day of the week would you want? And pretty much the results were split, 33, 33, 33 for morning, noon, or evening, and 1/7 for every day of the week. Wednesday evening was a no-go. Here in the South, Wednesday evenings are church nights. And so people did not want to meet on Wednesday, but it's unfortunate. I would suggest, there's an advantage to having it the first Monday of every month, because that's when James goes on, but now they're recorded. So for a long time, the sessions were only live and he didn't have a database. Now he's got this huge huge recorded library. So if the topic that's being aired live isn't one you're interested in, you can easily show something from a previous recorded session. So there's an advantage to having it the same day and time every month, because people remember that. But then if somebody has bowling on Monday nights, then they can never come. And so that excludes people if you do it the same time all the time. Another interesting thing people really do like, our practitioners love when we do sort of extra events. And there's 2 that we've done that are really sort of fun. One is called Grand Rounds. And so in Grand Rounds, practitioner brings a case that they're stumped on. And so they present the case in front of the group. And usually I stand at the whiteboard and I write down all the pertinent stuff. And then audience members start firing questions at the presenter. And then everybody adds what they would do to care for that patient where they're stuck. So the chiropractor says, oh, that person with migraines, have you thought about getting their upper cervical spine adjusted? And then the naturopath says, oh no, wait a minute, you haven't talked about vitamin B2 deficiency. And then the medical doctor says, well, you know, this patient has a history of lupus as well. Has anybody done an evaluation? Make sure they're not having autoimmune, right? And so everybody kind of gives their 2 cents from their totally different perspectives. And that's a really fun way. It's fun for the presenter because you get new ideas of a case you're stuck on. And it's fun to see this multiple interdisciplinary spider web of approaches that everybody learns from. So grand rounds is a really fun thing that we've done. And the other one is called speed dating. And in speed dating, we line up the practitioners like in a row of tables face to face, and we set a timer. And so for 5 minutes, you get to tell the person in front of you anything you want about yourself, your practice, who you are, where you work, what your specialties are, what your favorite thing to do is, what's your biggest challenge, what would a perfect referral look like? And then we stop after 5 minutes and the other person gets to tell that person. And then the one side of the table stays stationary, and after the timer moves again, and it's not 5 minutes, I think it's 1 minute, 1 minute per person. And then after 1 minute, then that person stays and you move down and tell that same story to the next person. So you get to have, unlike in a networking meeting where you only get to probably talk to 3 or 5 people in an evening before the event starts, on speed dating, you get to talk to in 60 minutes, 30 different people. So it's a really fast way. And then everybody's got business cards. So you exchange cards so that you can understand personality and speech and heritage and culture and something about all the practitioners in the room.
That's exciting. Thank you. I'm totally motivated to try those.
Yeah, so those are fun.
You mentioned you get anywhere between 12 and 40 people. I think that's the sweet spot. Honestly, much bigger than that, then it's kind of like a seminar and it's preaching. It's not as intimate. And
yeah,
that's just my 2 cents. And I'm sure that's what people love about it is the intimacy.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. Oh, and the most flattering thing that can happen is when one of your attendees says, I'm going to start my own meetup group in my community. And so I've had 2 of those. So that makes me really happy.
That's awesome. Okay. So tell me, you're still using the content or picking and choosing the content?
We do occasionally. Honestly, I would say the content from the functional forum is our backup plan. Usually somebody has something that they're working on that they want to present. Mm-hmm. So if somebody has, let's say they're going to the American Herbalist Guild lecture and they're presenting their topic on whatever, they want to use our audience as their first line. So they prepare their PowerPoint and give it to our group. And everybody gives them feedback and asks questions. And then they're better prepared to do it live on their audience wherever they're going to next. So that happens often enough that that's our usual first line of education. Mm-hmm. Last month, we had an unscheduled meeting and we talked about coronavirus. It was our first meeting since it broke. And I spent a long time creating a PowerPoint and teaching everybody the best I could. Sadly, I had a statistician from Georgia State who was going to come. I had an MD cardiologist who was going to come, and I had an MD infectious disease doctor who was going to come, and all 3 canceled the day of the event. So it's just me giving my little PowerPoint, telling what I knew. So, and that was on the front end of the curve. So we're a lot farther down the rabbit hole now than we were then, but yeah, so different topics all the time.
What would you tell someone who's on the fence? So someone who's a clinician, someone who's a health coach, or maybe even just a health enthusiast. What would you tell them if they were like, I don't know, should I start this? What would you say to encourage someone?
Yeah, so I absolutely love my meetup. It's one of my highlights of my month. I get to see these people who I now consider friends, right? Sometimes some of them bring homemade wine. That's always fun, right? Um, and we're making, hold on, quarantinis now.
Nice.
So, right. So we know that zinc has antiviral properties, right? And it prevents RNA replication. So in order for zinc to get into the cytoplasm, it needs something called a zinc ionophore to push it across the cell membrane. And quercetin, quinine, which is in tonic water, and green tea are all ionophores. So we love the to make a little cocktail with some tonic water, a little bit of green tea, and then whatever else you might throw in there for adult fun. Good ideas to have quarantinis. So we are, what would my advice be? First of all, you just have to do it. There's almost always, if you're going to start, you can usually do it in somebody's waiting room after hours, right? Because you don't need a large space at the beginning. If it's just 4 of you, get together, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and watch a functional forum video that's of a subject of interest to everybody. That's a great way to get started. After you've done that, then by all means, go ahead and have a second one in a month and ask everybody to bring a friend. And now you've got 8 people who are interested in the same thing, who want to share with each other and talk about referral sources back and forth among the different practitioners, because everybody has a gift to share. And if you don't have somebody to tell you about it, they're not going to know that you have it. And this is a great opportunity using the functional forum, because they give you the copy to say in your emails, what to say, little artwork for your emails to look pretty, and then content that's live if you want to do it on those days. If you want to not do it those days, you don't have to watch it live. You can still do it at a recording. Right.
I got to tell you, you seem like the kind of group I want to party with. Quarantini. Good God. Yeah. Did you know capers and caper berries are high in quercetin?
I did not.
Very
good to know. Definitely throwing some capers into our next quarantinis.
That's what I was just thinking, in case, you know, more on the savory side, right? Versus
That's
like
right.
the cosmopolitan side. But
right.
I think this is excellent. I just want more providers to take a lesson from you and see that it's possible. And that I think the big hurdle is really how do we get maybe the right people in the,
yeah.
I think that's probably my final question is like, how do you make sure, are you kind of vetting? Is there a,
Yeah. So 10 years ago, we had a very, very, very strict vetting policy. And I'd even have to go back and look at it to remind myself what it looked like. But I know that we said we were going to, the purpose of the organization originally was sort of create a vetted Rolodex, one that we would publish that would say, all right, these are practitioners who are certified in whatever their specialty is, or registered, or whatever their highest level of expertise is in their field. For example, if you just opened your door because your mother is a doctor and you decided you want to be a health coach, to me, that isn't something that I would want to vet. I would want to vet someone who's been to health coach training and has a certificate, right? So we wanted you to have that. We wanted you to certify yourself that you're following best business practices for your industry. We wanted you to swear that you would never see patients impaired, that you would never see them if you were drunk or had been partying the night before, if you were too sleep deprived to safely take care of somebody. But this whole checklist of things, that you would be present with your patients, that you would never speak ill of another practitioner modality, especially if you didn't know what that person was, because especially early on, 10 years ago, you know, if a patient went to a colon hydrotherapist and a gastroenterologist, the gastroenterologist would completely dismiss and humiliate anything that that practitioner had to say, no matter how science-based or evidence or the good outcomes that the patient got from it. So we would make a promise to never say anything ill like that of any of our practitioners. So I had a whole checklist and people signed 3 pages of it, and we sort of stopped doing that because we stopped deciding to police it. We just decided to let it organically happen. And there's still something to be said about the way we were doing it 10 years ago, but pretty much the root group that we have are just friends and we know each other. And since I've seen all of them as a patient pretty much, I can sort of self-ascertain that they're following all those best guidelines of being a business owner and a practitioner of the highest degree. So how do you vet them out? You at least in your early meetup group, you meet them, you know who they are, you're not inviting strangers. And then they can invite people that you don't know, but they're not strangers to them.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent, it's really interesting because we have the same policy at SLIM is, you know, you've got to have some type of an certification, accreditation, and because what we don't want are health enthusiasts. And
right.
What ends up happening or what could happen is that, like you said, just somebody who's you know, maybe had something happen to them and they think they know everything about whatever, you still have to have some criteria. And we don't want people to come, we want them to come there to contribute. I say
right.
It's all about giving. This isn't just about taking, right? So people,
right.
health enthusiasts maybe show up to get help for themselves. And
right.
That's not what we built ours on. So
right, exactly. Yeah, and also often those health enthusiasts become salespeople, and we have a strict no sales policy. We are there for education, and let's say, for example, one of our chiropractors has a whole online stress management program through HeartMath. He talks to us about stress all the time. At the end of his talk, he can pass out a handout that says, if you are interested in learning more, this is my business that I do for health. But that's it. That's all he can do. He can't preach it, offer a discount, do a sales pitch, any of that, right? So we're very strict about that. This is for education purposes only, not for the purpose of sales. What else would I suggest to your audience? I think that for us, having the meetings after work has worked pretty well. Lunchtime meetings were never attended. Something always came up that day. Weekend meetings are often better, but if your audience is parents of young children, you probably won't get them there. So kind of depends on who your practitioners are. Sunday afternoon worked for many people, but again, it was a church day for a lot of others. And so we ended up settling on Monday nights.
Yeah, nice. We've done ours always Thursday evenings. It's sort of like a happy hour night. And
right.
It's always worked. And we do it 4 times a year. So those people that work late on Thursdays, they're going to make exceptions, right? But yeah, only 4 times a year.
Right.
We have done other events throughout, like you said, you know, you've got
right.
to fill in, but it sort of seems like before you know it, it's here.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's one of the beautiful things about having a relationship with the Functional Forum is there's plenty of content to be had. So if education is the focus of your group, and I think it probably should be, then you have this great opportunity to pull from a large library of top experts in our industry.
Absolutely. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate you. You are a wealth of knowledge.